Well, there's the go live button, and we are live, but we need to share the link for the stream itself. Okay. Do you have it? You need me to go get it? You can find it. There. It is live. Let me copy that. And that, so we don't get the inception sound. Go to Discord. Public, public, public. Control B. And now Telegram. Okay, I'm right here. I'm right here. Hmm. I hate it when that happens. Oh, smoothing it out. I cut a lot of material off. Yeah, I cut a lot of material off. Okay. Let's see. I guess we want to start the Audacity recording. That would be my guess. Okay, I hit the record and it didn't actually start recording. Oh no. Hold on, I gotta get rid of whatever it did do. Select the audio for delete and try again. Control A. Whatever was on here before. I haven't used this laptop in a little while. I've been out in my garage doing stuff. Okay, it's saying there's not actually a recording, so okay, hold on. Edit. All right, ready when you are. Well, I can hear my dog snoring. I don't see that on my waveform either, so. Zero. That was perfect. Well, it sounded perfect to me because you got latency, and I say it at the exact same time you're going to say, yeah, blah, blah, etc. Uh, okay. Uh, we ready to kick this off? Is that a reference to Monster Squad? Just curious. Well, it's a movie from like the early 1980s. It's a You should watch it. It's a really good movie. Mm, Anyways, moving on from nerdy quotes. Sip of coffee. Well, I guess I should check and see if people are saying our audio sucks. Nope, nobody's saying anything because we have 0 viewers. Uh huh. All right. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 398. This is episode 398.5, recorded on Sunday the 16th of October, 2022. Light on hosts, I'm Joe. First up in the news, Debian carries buffer patches, ICE WM3, Wireshark 4, free Ubuntu Pro for all, KDE winds down Plasma 5, VirtualBox 7, Proton drives prices, and dreams of Forky. In security and privacy, new Chinese malware for everything, Intel springs a leak, and Android's leak exposed. Then in our wandering, I mess around with my 3D printer, and Moss continues to fight with Mint 21. In our innards section, we begin a historical journey through Linux distros. And finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Yeah, I guess I'll take the first one and you take the next one. So, first up, the news. Debian to carry patches for GNOME triple buffering. This is from Phoronix. There's been a lot happening in Debian recently, from improving their handling of non-free firmware to switching to Pipewire and WirePlumber with Debian 12. Another change on the way is picking up Ubuntu's work on dynamic triple buffering for the GNOME desktop. Due to upstream GNOME Mutter not viewing the work as ready yet, Ubuntu has been carrying their own dynamic triple buffering support with Ubuntu 22.04 LTS and the upcoming 22.10. This GNOME triple buffering support has been working out well for improving the desktop performance, especially with cases of Intel integrated graphics, Raspberry Pi performance, and other situations where when moving dynamically to triple buffering, it ramps up the GPU work and thus in a higher performance state. A Phoronix reader pointed out that the Ubuntu patches for the dynamic triple buffering are working their way to Debian. Canonical engineer Jeremy Bicca recently patched the Debian experimental Mutter 43 build with the dynamic triple buffering support, and the changes as of today have reached Debian testing and in turn to be found in Debian 12. Short of any issues coming up when they would decide to drop these out of tree patches, as of this morning, Mutter 43.0-2 reached Debian testing with the dynamic triple buffering in tow. The upstream MR tracking the dynamic triple buffering for GNOME does continue to see revised patches by Canonical's Daniel Van Vogt. But the latest upstream comment on the work remains, unsetting the milestone, as unfortunately there's no timeline to merge this in its current form. We of course know that for many users this MR improves the experience a lot. However, until a solution deemed ready for upstream arrives, users or distros wanting to have it will need to carry it as downstream patch. P.S. Some good things need time. In any event, until a proper upstream solution is ready, some Linux distributions are happy to carry the work themselves, as it can mean a noticeable improvement to the user experience. Look for the Debian 12 release with many goodies in 2023. I really don't have anything else to add to that. It was very thorough. Now that does sound extremely useful, but I've just never been an IceWM guy. I know that like Leo used it several times. A couple other people that I podcast with really like Ice Window Manager, but it's just never really been my thing. Right. Hmm. All right. Evidently, we have a weird echo for me. Well, it's on the live stream, and Moss isn't coming through. OBS is messing up again. Thanks for letting us know, Leo. I don't know why it made that switch. Did that fix it? No, it didn't. Properties. Why didn't it fix it? Did that fix it? Moss, say something.
Say something, Moss.
All right, that should have fixed it. Leo, can you verify?
Welcome to mintCast, the technical difficulties
Well, I
version.
checked all of this before we actually started to make sure that the two different audios were separated, and I guess as soon as we started streaming, it must have merged them. All right, so
Are we
back.
good, Leo?
Yeah, he says we're good.
Good.
Back to the show. Thank you, Leo. Wireshark 4.0 Network Protocol Analyzer released. This is from Phoronix. Wireshark 4.0 has been released as the newest version of this leading open source network protocol analyzer. Wireshark 4.0 introduces a more powerful display, filter syntax that has many new extensions, redesigned conversion and endpoint dialogues. The default main window layout has been improved. Improvements to hex dumping, importing, faster max-wind geolocation handling, and a variety of other improvements and fixes. Wireshark 4.0 also marks the point that the project has stopped producing 32-bit Windows binaries. Now, I have used Wireshark like a couple of times just on my phone, though, in conjunction with PIA. I do want to set it up at home and try and use it there, but I use VPN on my router, and my router is not set up for Wireshark right now. So,
Over my head,
yeah.
but we knew that.
Well, you started using Wireshark before any of the rest of us did.
No. I wasn't using Wireshark. We're talking WireGuard.
Oh, WireGuard. Okay.
WireShark is a network uh, analysis.
Okay.
WireGuard is a VPN type thing.
Okay, I was confused there. I
Mm-hmm.
see what you're saying. Too many wires.
Yeah, I was confused as well, but I figured it out.
Ah. Well, thank you for explaining it to me, Moss. All right,
You're
you're up.
quite. Oh, Canonical launches free Ubuntu Pro subscription for everyone from 9 to 5 Linux. Canonical launched a free tier of its Ubuntu Pro commercial offering for everyone who wants to extend the coverage of security updates on their Ubuntu PCs to up to 10 years and also access exclusive tools. Announced by Canonical last year, Ubuntu Pro is an expanded security maintenance and compliance subscription as part of Ubuntu Advantage, which was initially designed for enterprise customers offering global services who wanted long-term stability for their infrastructure and applications. Now Canonical decided to expand Ubuntu Pro for personal and small-scale commercial use with a free tier for up to 5 machines in an attempt to make open source more easily consumable by the masses and provide Ubuntu users with better security for their installations for up to 10 years. Ubuntu Pro is available for every supported Ubuntu LTS version, starting with Ubuntu 16.04 ESM and up to Ubuntu 22.04 LTS. However, it is not available for interim Ubuntu releases like the upcoming Ubuntu 22.10 Kinetic Kudu. Free stuff is good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this more to see if it's actually useful. I don't know. I don't know what's included with an Ubuntu Pro subscription.
Well, the Ubuntu Pro subscription now just requires that you have an Ubuntu One
Right.
account.
I think I used to have one back in the day because they offered you
And they
free
don't close them
storage.
down, I learned a long time ago.
Okay. Well, they used to offer you like a couple of gig of free storage or something if you signed up for an Ubuntu One account. So
And there was a time that they said we're closing it down, and then they got such a backlash that they
right.
decided,
So I guess my
okay,
account's still there.
probably is.
All right, KDE Plasma 5.27 plans to be the last Plasma 5 feature release, also from Phoronix. With Qt6 porting and KDE Frameworks 6 development continuing at full speed, KDE developers are looking at Plasma 5.27 being the last feature release in the Plasma 5 series. Prominent KDE developer Kai Uwe just published his recap from being at the KDE Academy conference in Barcelona, Spain. During this year's annual KDE gathering, Qt6 porting and KDE Frameworks 6 development was a popular topic. KDE developers decided for a feature freeze on KDE Frameworks 5 at the end of December of this year, and the KDE Plasma 5.27 will be the final feature release in the Plasma 5 series. KDE Plasma 5.26 is releasing next week, while per the usual KDE Plasma release cadence, KDE Plasma 5.27 in turn should be out next February. So after that point, the next feature release would be KDE Plasma 6.0, which we'll see if they manage to make it for their usual June summer release or if Plasma 6.0 will require extra time. A big step up in next-gen Plasma work is that the remaining blockers for getting KWin to build against Qt6 are expected to be resolved soon. The website ISKDE
Is KDE using Qt6.org?
Is KDE using Qt6.org can be used for tracking what and how many KDE components can currently build against the Qt6 toolkit. More details on the Academy 2022 happenings and the Qt6 KF5 attention via Kai's blog. I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I only sparingly use KDE Plasma, but it's one of those things that has so many features it gets beyond my ability to cope with.
Yeah,
I
Plasma is one of those very customizable things that has just been beyond what I want to really delve into.
I frequently try out distros that claim to have sane defaults for it, and they're usually at least partly right. I am a fan of Farron OS, for instance, which was originally trying to do Mint with Plasma. Anyhow. Oh, and I'm a big fan of Mandrake, as we'll find out later. VirtualBox 7.0 released with DXVK and Secure Boot support and encryption from 9 to 5 Linux. Oracle released VirtualBox 7.0 as the newest stable series of its free open source and cross-platform virtualization software for GNU/Linux, Solaris, macOS, and Windows systems. Highlights of VirtualBox 7.0 include initial support for the fully encrypted virtual machines via command line, including the configuration logs and save states, new 3D support based on DXVK for GNU/Linux, Solaris, and macOS hosts, secure boot support when using EFI boot, support for IOMMU devices, Intel and AMD variant, as well as support for virtual TPM 1.2 and TPM 2.0 devices. The graphical user interface received numerous changes, including improved theme support on GNU Linux systems using the native engine, a new notification center where you can see all the info about errors and other core functionality, a new help viewer widget to more easily access the help manual, and a new virtual machine wizard to integrate the unattended guest OS installation. The GUI also features a new utility similar to Top or Resource Monitor that lists performance statistics like CPU usage, RAM usage, disk I/O rate, etc. of running guest VMs, a new option to disable a host screensaver, better mouse handling on multi-monitor setups on X11, reworked global preferences, machine settings and wizards, improved overall accessibility, and improved behavior of the virtual machine list. The audio recording feature has been improved as well, and OGG Vorbis is now used as the default audio format for WebM containers rather than Opus. On top of that, there's a new default host driver type to make it possible to move virtual machines between different platforms without having to explicitly change the audio driver. Among other noteworthy changes, VirtualBox 7.0 implements initial support for automatic updating of guest editions for Linux guest machines, along with the ability to wait for the guest VM to reboot when updating guest editions via vbox manage, and a new wait run level subcommand in guest control to make it possible to wait for a guest VM to reach a certain run level. The Linux guest edition screen size The Linux Guest Edition screen's resize functionality has been revamped, and there is now basic integration with the guest's desktop environments. In addition, this release moves the EHCI and XHCI USB controller devices to the open source base package, adds experimental support for guest debugging via GNU Debugger (GB), and enhances cloud networking functionality, especially for local VMs. Boy, my tongue is getting tight around these teeth, let me tell you. I don't
It's a
use
lot.
VMs.
I do, and I have not noticed this change yet. So, yeah, but
I probably
it
will
sounds like
try
it'll
it
cool.
soon.
It'll be cool.
I know that Tony has been trying to get me to try VMs since we started Distro Hoppers back in April of 2019.
Oh, instead of installing on bare metal every time, just try it out
No,
in a
we're
virtual
supposed to
machine.
install on bare metal, but he says I should try them out first in a VM.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm opposed to doing a review based on a VM.
Ah, okay. No, I use a VM every day. Couple of them every day. But yeah, that's because I like keeping things isolated, or at least certain things isolated.
I'm isolated enough already, thank you.
Hmm. Okay, well, Proton Drive launches new subscription prices. This is from the Proton blog. Proton is excited to take an important next step by launching Proton Drive as a free encrypted cloud storage service. Proton Drive has been in development for over 3 years. During that time, we progressively refined and developed our encryption model to deliver the most private and secure cloud storage service available today. This was made possible by the approximately 450,000 members of the Proton community who participated in the Proton Drive beta. When it, com-
Including me.
when it comes to storing files, we are currently faced with an unenviable choice. You can store them offline or in the cloud. Storing your files offline provides better privacy, but sacrifices data reliability and accessibility. For example, if you keep your files on your laptop, you cannot access them on other devices. If you lose that laptop, you will lose those files. Storing your files online in the cloud solves reliability and accessibility, but means you're sharing your most intimate data with big tech companies that can then share this data with governments, like China, or violate your privacy as part of their business model. With Proton Drive, Your files are always accessible, even if you lose your laptop or phone, but because of that encryption, Proton Drive is like a Swiss vault for your data. Our encryption mathematically ensures that nobody, not even us, can access your files. You, and those you specifically authorize, are the only ones who can access your files. Proton Drive uses end-to-end encryption, which provides a mathematical guarantee of privacy. This includes end-to-end encryption of files, file names, folders, file extensions, file sizes, and file creation modification times. Cryptographic signatures on all files and folders so they cannot be tampered with. Cryptographic uploader verification so you know which account uploaded a file, and that a file was not uploaded or replaced by a malicious actor. Unlike other encrypted cloud providers, Proton can never decrypt any of your files or share them with third parties because all your data is end-to-end encrypted. Now, I'm going to say that this sounds like a great elevator pitch, but really it's just another cloud storage service. And yes, there are others that do offer end-to-end encryption, or you can create your own.
Well, note their nice little pun about it's like a Swiss vault because they are in Switzerland.
Yeah.
I also noticed that this article doesn't mention the price changes, which were minimal, but noticeable.
Okay,
It
so
depends on what you want. It's free up to a certain point. It's added into your account above that point.
okay, I'd have to take a
You
look at
get
the
1
pricing on
gigabyte
that
for free.
too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how much they offer a terabyte for.
I think I could go look.
No worries.
Okay,
That's
then I
something
will.
for us to do on our own time.
All right. Well, I was a beta tester on this. I didn't use it as much as many others, I assume. And I never had any problems with it while it was in beta. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I've mostly stopped using cloud storage providers in general. Like I use a little bit from Google, but that's mostly for like this show and a place to keep my resume. And I think I just never turned off Amazon Photos. So like all the photos I take automatically get backed up there. But
Yeah.
mostly I set up my own stuff, and instead of cloud, I just have it going to multiple computers. Now, granted, I know I'm a little unusual. We are a little unusual when it comes to like what the rest of the world does in regards to computers. You know, most people have like one, maybe two computers. I
Or
have more than
Chromebooks,
that
which
in
are not
this
quite the
room.
same thing.
Yeah, I have more than that in this room. So, um, a lot more than that in this room. But that's because I'm a nerd and I like setting up computers. And so I can just set everything to automatically synchronize across all my machines and still feel fairly secure.
Yeah.
It is good to have something offsite as well. I may or may not have set up a small Raspberry Pi at my dad's house in Florida that also works as a backup with some external hard drives.
Well, I only have one functioning computer in this room, although there are two others. Well, I guess they're all functioning, they're just not plugged in. Then, of course, I've got two laptops in the living room as well as another computer. And then there's my wife's laptop. And we've got a few Raspberry Pis, none of which are currently plugged in.
Raspberry Pis are good for simple backup systems.
Also, we will be changing clouds on mintCast shortly.
Hopefully, maybe
if
one day.
Bill had been here, we would be doing it this episode, but Bill had an emergency to take care of.
Right, switching to Nextcloud instead of Google, which has its ups and downs.
We will probably keep using Google for our show notes until we can get used to what Nextcloud has.
Well, not only that, but I want to make sure that Yes, Nextcloud is great for us all to be able to access to it, but we need some redundancy. So I'll have to set up Nextcloud, or you'll have to set up Nextcloud, and actually get
Yeah.
a full backup of everything, just so that if something
Well,
happens to his
I
computer.
intend to do that if and when we manage to get a new house, which we're not any closer to right now, other than
Oh,
having a little bit more money for down payment.
I forgot to tell you, they're going to tear down my dad's house in Iowa.
Oh, so we
The
can't.
city
That is
is
no longer an option.
no longer an option. He gave it to the city, and they're going to tear it down because nobody lived in
Okay.
it for forever.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries.
We thought about it a few times.
Uh,
Well, let's move on.
yep.
Debian 14 to be codenamed Forky from Phoronix. The upcoming Debian GNU Linux 12 release is codenamed Bookworm and is expected to be released in 2023. Meanwhile, Debian 13 will be out around 2025 and was already announced under the Trixie codename. Debian 12 Bookworm Freeze is coming up, so the Debian release team shared today that Debian 14 will go by the Forky name. Debian codenames are named after toys from the Toy Story franchise. Did everyone know that?
I did not know that. That's interesting. Debian's been around longer than the Toy Story franchise, but I don't know by how much. Toy Story's been around for a while.
Well, the question is, when did Debian start codenaming their distros?
I guess
That
there's
could be
that.
looked up rather quickly too.
Yeah.
Yeah, version history. Well, Sarge was in 2005, which was version 3.1.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
I do not see an earlier naming. There should be a list down here somewhere, but there is not.
Okay. Well, it's not overly important.
Okay, well, we are done with the news then.
Yeah, that's it for the news. Yes, and we are doing some pretty heavy work for news and security and privacy simply because there's only two of us.
Yeah, we can't talk all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Security and privacy. New Chinese malware attacks Windows, Mac, and Linux. This is from the Hacker News. A previously undocumented command and control C2 framework dubbed Alchemist is likely being used in the wild to target Windows, Mac OS, and Linux systems. Alchemist C2 has a web interface written in simplified Chinese and can generate a configured payload, establish remote sessions, deploy payload to the remote machines, capture screenshots, perform remote shellcode execution, and run arbitrary commands. Cisco Talos said in a report shared with the Hacker News. A threat actor gaining privileged shell access on a victim's machine is like having a Swiss Army knife, enabling the execution of arbitrary commands or shell codes in the victim's environment, resulting in significant effects on the target organization, the researchers said.
Gee,
Basically,
I wonder why they wrote it in Chinese.
basically, what this says is that with this framework, someone can reach out and own your computer from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Which is a little scary.
Yes,
Now,
it is.
I'm sure that it's out there. It's out there in the wild, and I don't know how they're going to mitigate against it. But I'm sure that things are in the work.
Okay, Intel confirms leak of Alder Lake BIOS source code from the Hacker News. Chipmaker Intel has confirmed that proprietary source code related to its Alder Lake CPUs has been leaked following its release by an unknown third party on 4chan and GitHub last week. The published content contains UEFI code for Alder Lake, the company's 12th generation processors that was originally launched in November 2021. In a statement shared with Tom's Hardware, Intel said the leak doesn't expose any new security vulnerabilities, as we do not rely on obfuscation of information as a security measure. That's a quote.
That's a good thing.
It's also encouraging the broader security research community to report any potential issues through its bug bounty program, adding it's reaching out to customers to notify them on the matter. Besides the UEFI code, the leaked data dump includes a plethora of files and tools, some of which appear to come from firmware vendor Inside Software. That's INSYDE software.
Yeah, so this leak shouldn't be an issue other than, finding the security hole.
Well, of
But
course,
yeah.
Intel doesn't want you to think it's a problem, but
Well,
it doesn't sound like it is.
yeah, well, I'm also glad that they don't try to use security through obscurity as a model. But yeah. All right. Moving on, Android leaks some traffic even when always on VPN is enabled. From Bleeding Computer, Molvad VPN has discovered that Android leaks traffic every time the device connects to a Wi-Fi network. Even if the block connections without VPN or always on VPN features are enabled. The data being leaked outside VPN tunnels includes source IP addresses, DNS lookups, HTTPS traffic, and likely also NTP traffic. This behavior is built into the Android operating system and is a design choice. However, Android users likely didn't know this until now due to the inaccurate description of the VPN lockdown features in Android's documentation. Molvad discovered the issue during a security audit that hasn't been published yet, issuing a warning yesterday to raise awareness on the matter and apply additional pressure on Google. Now,
Thank you, Molvad.
Thank you, Molvad. Hopefully this does lead to either Google fixing the issue, which I doubt, or developers, independent developers creating an application or something that actually fixes the issue. You might have to sideload or whatever. But yeah, that would be appreciated, and I'm sure that the fix will come out eventually.
And apologies to Bleeding Computer. We know you are not bleeding.
All right, moving on to the bi-weekly wanderings. And first up, it's me.
It's you. It's really you.
It's me. It's me. It has been a fun couple of weeks. My 3D printer has been all over the place. First, I still have had trouble leveling the bed, but it was not for the reason that I thought. Second, I started having print quality issues where the walls and not the layers would not be sticking together, and prints were very weak no matter what settings or tweaks I used. I found out that this was due to under extrusion. I'm having trouble pronouncing things today for some reason. So the first thing that I tried was to clean the nozzle, which is not a difficult thing to do. It didn't help. Then I tried umping the temp on the nozzle to see if it was just the filament getting old and needed a higher temperature to be able to force things through. Also did not help. Then I remembered I had not calibrated the machine after replacing the gears for the extruder. It's a fun process, takes a bit of time, but it's not really that difficult. I did the calibration, and I'm surprised the printer was actually printing anything at all. It was nearly 35% off when trying to print 100 millimeters of filament with the feed tube removed so the heat block would not have an impact. So instead of printing 100 millimeters, it was printing 65 millimeters of filament. And that's bad. After I got that adjusted, I was able to get a couple of good prints, and I was really happy with the quality. But not long after that, those prints, I started getting grinding and popping from the filament, and the PTFE tubing was moving back and forth. So I replaced the tubing with some Capricorn that I had lying around. This helped the tube movement, but not with the grinding and popping, so I replaced the filament. This also did not correct the issue. So, time to replace the nozzle. Like a jackass, I cross-threaded it and stripped the heater block with a steel 4.4 millimeter nozzle. So now I had to order a new heater block. Ordered from Amazon, and while I was waiting, I took the heater block apart in order to prepare for when the package arrived, and I noticed that my problem was most likely the throat, as it was in very bad condition and nearly full of what was it? Pet G. And I'm glad that the parts that I ordered will have a few of those included as well. Although I will probably need to make another order for a set of thermistors and heaters. But while I was printing, I was able to finish the project that I was working on, which was the adapters for the Razer Jungle Cat. Where is my phone? I just had, here we go. For the Razer Jungle Cat, and if you're looking on YouTube, you should be able to see the adapters that I made right now. And I will snap them onto my phone real quick so you can take a look. And yeah, when I snap them on there, kind of looks like a switch. Controllers that I purchased on eBay so that they would mount up to the case on my Note 10 Plus. I'd seen a couple of other 3D prints that do the same thing for the same phone, but I didn't like the design, so I made my own, and I like how it came out, because most of the other ones you were 3D printing the case as well. I tried a different iteration of someone else's before designing my own, and it was just way too much work to take off my case, put on their case, and then put on the end pieces. So I like this much better. It just fits on the, what's it, Spriggan case that I have, and Spriggan's like one of the most common sets of cases, and it just snaps on really well. My next step is going to be to take this design and modify it so that it works on my 1GX laptop, that little mini laptop. Now, as to the Jungle Cat controller itself, it is Bluetooth, but that's what I needed, and it does mean that there is a little bit of latency, but I haven't noticed too much of an issue. I've played a couple of games, mostly Sega Genesis emulation on here. The buttons are pretty small and very cramped and not comfortable for use for a long period of time. I am thinking of redesigning the phone adapter so that it has more of a handle down at the bottom to make it more comfortable for long-term play. Maybe change the angle and add some bulk to it. Now, I do want to say that the buttons aren't exactly great, and the triggers, I tried playing the original Nintendo 64, the 007, and I really had trouble with targeting using the joystick on here. So yeah. Maybe if I add a topper to it, that would change how it worked, but I'm not sure. Now, when the parts came in for the 3D printer, I was able to get everything put back together and up and printing again in a very short amount of time, since I'd already taken everything apart. I had even started printing using some PET G despite not having the enclosure set up, and it worked pretty well. I had to do a whole lot more tweaking to get rid of the stringing for the PET G. I'm working on printing a new fan shroud for my 3D printer in order to better facilitate part cooling, and I'm doing that in PET G because of the heat tolerances. I am not quite satisfied with what has come out yet. But I also got moving on from 3D printing for now at least, I got a brand new headset. I wanted to test out a new low-cost 2.4 gigahertz headset to see if it was any good. Now, as you know, I rarely, if ever, buy new headsets. I buy broken headsets and then fix them. So it's different for me to buy something new. Now, the one I bought was the MPOW Air Pro gaming headset. It was $16 and it does work well. And I got it on eBay. So if you're looking for it, look for it on eBay. I think Nubwo has something very similar on Amazon, but it is $30 instead of the 16. Now, the pros on this is the range for receiving sound is incredible. I could basically be anywhere in my house and it would still pick up the receiver from the garage and sound great, which is extremely useful. Although when it came to the mic on the way back, the range was not as good. The sound did not go all the way through. So it's comfortable to wear for hours on end, although I do have others that I would say are more comfortable. None of the problems that you normally get with Bluetooth connectivity that I had, because it's a 2.4 gigahertz and good battery performance from what I can see. I mean, I have had to charge it very few times and it works out really well. And the cons, well, it does have a mic mute button and a light to show whether or not it's active. The light is on the body of the headset itself instead of on the end of the mic, so it's difficult to see if the mic is on or off at any given time while actually wearing the headset. And the mic quality could be a lot better. It's not terrible, but I don't think it's quite up to podcasting standards. And also, it does not automatically shut off when not in use. It will stay on until the battery is dead, despite the box saying that it has that feature of turning off when it's not in use. The mic that's connected to it is not removable or retractable, but it is bendable, so you can bend it up out of the way. Now, I have noticed the occasional shift in audio quality on the headset itself. Sometimes it sounds incredible, and then other times it sounds very meh. But I'm not sure if that is the device itself or if it was something to do with a mumble server that I was on when I was doing those checks. I have played several like YouTube songs on our YouTube videos just for music to see how it was, and those came out pretty well. Didn't notice the shifting quality then. But for the low cost, I would say definitely not bad. Now, moving on from that headset, I couldn't sleep last night, so I ended up fixing headphones because I find that very soothing. I ended up fixing 6 sets of the LG headsets because I was down to 2 and I needed to fix a whole bunch anyway. And now I can get by with just 2 because, you know, one's charging, you wear the other one. But it's nice to have extras available. And I also was able to fix 2 sets of the drivers. So I got, I'd found a package of ones that needed work on that I had evidently set aside. So I was able to fix, 2 more sets of the one mores, one with extra long cables and one that is, you know, mounted correctly. And so I shouldn't have to work on headphones for a little while. Now, I also was able to pick up a mini keyboard yesterday for $5 at a little place called Five Below. It is 2.4 gigahertz. It comes with a dongle, and it's not Bluetooth, which I find extremely useful. It's good for thumb typing and has a very, very decent touchpad on it with changeable sensitivity. I would say that this is really good for an electronics go bag for in a pinch. You get to a system, it doesn't have a keyboard's broken, and you have a smaller bag and don't want to carry a full-size keyboard, this will work. Now, for thumb typing, it's great. For regular typing, it's not going to do the job. And yeah, but definitely for $5, great thing to have in a bag. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I've had a few of those, like I said to you earlier, and some of them are easier to type on than others. The buttons are variable quality, of course.
Yeah, no, these click pretty well. I mean, I like the there's really a tactile sensation when you push these. So these are good. And I've seen similar ones on eBay, but it's usually in the $10 to $15 range as opposed to the
Right?
$5 range. And now the
Yeah.
only thing I don't like about this is, and was talking to Moss about it earlier, is the fact that it takes two AAA batteries instead of a rechargeable USB micro, which it does have a micro port on it right there. It does have a micro port on it right there, but that's for actually like hooking up a micro cable to be able to use it like a keyboard with it hooked up with a cable if the battery goes dead. But yeah,
And my rebuttal to that problem was that those batteries will probably last 3 or 4 months.
yeah,
So it's not a big issue. And if you use rechargeable batteries, maybe they'll only last 2 months, but you don't have to throw batteries out.
yeah,
Okay, my turn.
yep, yes, sir.
Okay. I had one day of subbing, a week of fall break, and tomorrow another day of subbing, with next Friday off for some reason on the calendar. I've been working on my review for the next Distro Hoppers Digest. I've installed KDE Neon for this month and Storm DOS for next, which is a Debian version of Storm OS. I have to do a full checkup on my 2014 Mazda 2. Definitely could use a new clutch. The one in its original equipment, and it has over 155,000 miles on it. It still is pretty good, but you can tell the clutch point's getting a little high, and I do not know if they make them adjustable these days. But that's 3 times the normal life of a clutch, so I'm not going to push it. And it needs a few more things checked out and perhaps changed. The struts, the CV joints need to be checked out, things like that. Need to get that scheduled this week. We spent virtually no money on this car other than oil changes and tires since buying her in March 2019 for $5,500, including taxes. Part of the reason for that low price on that new of a car, um, considering that was 3 years ago, for a 2014, was the fact that it's a stick shift, 5 speed. And they just don't sell stick shifts in this state, which is weird because this is a big racing state.
They don't really sell stick shifts anymore to most people. I can drive a stick, but I'm also not 20.
Yeah, the millennial anti-theft device. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I've been having my taskbar or panel disappear when closing apps in Mint. Apparently, it's been a problem back to at least Mint 17, but I'd never had the issue until the past few weeks, and now it's happening on all my machines. I found the fix in the Mint community. If you've seen this happen, you open your terminal, Control Alt T, and you type G settings reset dash recursively space org.mate.panel for mate or org.cinnamon for cinnamon. You don't need the dot panel in cinnamon. And you hit enter and everything's fixed, and it's amazing and magic. Firefox on my wife's machine seems to have lost its Mesa, although the drivers are all installed. After much hair pulling, attempts to use TimeShift to fix it, and some other things, Whoozy on our Telegram group found someone who fixed the problem by purging the repo version and installing the Flatpak. I tried it and it worked. Then a few hours later, my TV machine had the same glitch in the middle of watching a streaming show on Hulu. Same fix, it worked. Both machines run Mint 21 Mate. My other machines regressed to Mint 20.3 Mate a couple of weeks ago, are good so far. So it could be another Mint 21 glitch, which might also reflect an issue in Ubuntu 22.04. I also just became aware that the distro test website has gone away. This was a nice page where you could install a distro on their cloud to see how it installs and runs. Apparently, they tried to sell the sites for a long time and either failed or succeeded. Nobody seems to know, but it no longer is the distro test website. That's all I have.
I never really used the distro test website.
I've tried it a few times. There was frequently a backup because it was so popular. But you'd figure a popular site, they could ask people to donate to support it or something instead of just try and sell the site.
Hmm?
Okay.
All right, on to the Linux innards. Okay, and today we're discussing different distros and their history.
Let me do this one.
Yes, sir.
How we got here, he says, joking. How we got here. The first Linux was just the kernel, plus the GNU toolkit in 1991. The first attempt at a complete user-friendly Linux was SLS, a software landing system, by Peter MacDonald in August 1992. Next came Slackware and Debian in 1993, followed by Red Hat in 1994, with their first non-beta in 1995. From that point on, everyone wanted an easier-to-use Linux. This episode, we're going to concentrate on Red Hat and its daughters and Mandrake and its progeny, because a lot of our hosts couldn't make the show today and we couldn't get the other distros represented.
Right. We couldn't research them all ourselves and put them all into the show notes ourselves. Okay, but I'm
So we'll presumably get them covered in future episodes.
yeah, yeah. All right, I'm gonna start off with the Red Hat portion. Now, Red Hat Linux started out in 1994, created by Mark Ewing and pushed ahead by Bob Young, who bought the business in 95, offering an alternative to Microsoft, which was being investigated at the time for monopolistic practices. I don't know if anybody else remembers that time frame, but yeah, that was an interesting time to not be involved with Microsoft. It is a good example of the way that open source software that is freely available can still make money by offering the software for free, but providing support as a subscription service. Now, they did change that a little bit, and they do sell RHEL, but they also sell the subscription service, and it's still open source. Now, Red Hat went public in 1999 and achieved the 8th biggest first day gain in the history of Wall Street. Afterwards, in its growth, it purchased and absorbed several other companies such as Cygnus, JBoss, Metamatrix, Mobisense, and others until it was acquired by IBM in 2019. But it is important to note that Red Hat still operates as an independent entity from IBM. Now,
For the time being.
for the time being, now they that could change at any time, but for now, it's still independent. During that time, Red Hat's goal was to provide open source software with a wide group of community driven developers to businesses with varying needs. As stated before, they make money by providing professional support and training, as well as integration services and catered repositories. Being an open source project has led to many forks, two of the most popular being Fedora and CentOS. But before we get to those, I think it's also important to discuss some of the programs and projects that Red Hat has had a hand in. There are others. Now, the one laptop per child program, it was very popular in the news for a while, and it was a very laudable thing that they did. It was created to make low-cost computers to help provide every child with a machine that they can use to learn with. I know that the program was in a lot of third world countries. I don't know the extent of how it was used or how many computers they actually made, but I do know that it was a popular program and at least somewhat successful.
Yeah, I do have some information stacked away in my head somewhere on that. It was moderately successful and not as successful as they wanted it to be because they were trying to get the computer price down to $100. And I think the best they did was 200.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even if I were to like build a Raspberry Pi computer, I think that the overall cost would still be close to between $150 and $200. So extremely difficult to do.
I did at one time own one of the OLPC laptops just to see what it looked like. And I could not understand the Sugar operating system, and it was too small for my hands. So I did sell it again, but I did want to get my hands on it and feel what it was like.
Mm. Now, another thing that they created was the KVM. not the KVM switch, but the kernel-based virtual machine, which allows the kernel to act as the hypervisor. And this was acquired by Red Hat in 2008. And yes, it does require some BIOS level settings to be able to turn on and off. And so it needs to be something that you can actually do in the BIOS. So that's somewhat dependent on the manufacturers. But it's still an extremely useful thing, and I'm glad it's there, and I use it all the time. Now, also, it's important in regards to Red Hat to mention GNOME. GNOME, everyone has heard of GNOME, and Red Hat is its largest contributor. If you've loaded up Fedora on anything, you've seen GNOME. Now, also, if in the last, 15, 20 years you've used Linux, then you've probably used systemd. Systemd was created by two engineers working for Red Hat with Fedora, and with Fedora being the first major distribution to implement systemd by default out of the box. And now I know that systemd has its issues, and we are moving away from it. But for a while there, Linux and systemd were hand in hand, nearly synonymous. Now, also OpenShift, which is a cloud computing platform that's operated by Red Hat Linux, is another important one to mention. Red Hat has made OpenShift very popular and available for use. Now, moving on to Fedora. Fedora started out as a volunteer project that provided well-tested third-party software for Red Hat in a single repository, and became a proper fork when Red Hat decided to focus on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It was created by Warren Togami as an undergraduate project. Now, the fork of Red Hat that started out as Fedora Core in 2003. It was named after one of the two available repositories, Core and Extra. Core had all the required software that made Fedora usable and was maintained by Red Hat developers. Extras, on the other hand, was run by the community and basically had everything to make Fedora more usable to an end user. The distinction between Core and Extras was removed with the release of Fedora 7. Now, obviously, if you were to get a disk at the time of Fedora, then it would be Fedora Core, and all the Core stuff would be there, and then the repositories for Core would simply do the updates, and then you would add things manually from Extra. Now, since Fedora 21, there has been an effort to modularize distribution and make development more agile. There are currently 3 different main versions of Fedora that are available, which are Workstation, which is obviously used on personal computers, Server, which is obviously used for servers, and Atomic, which is also on servers but used for cloud computing. There are a couple other versions as well that are notable. Silverblue, which is similar to Workstation, but it is immutable so that all stations stay exactly the same. So they'll all have the exact same applications and get the exact same updates, and you move from one to the other, and it makes it a lot easier to maintain and fix if something goes wrong, because if something goes wrong on one, it's going to go wrong on all. And then there is also Fedora IoT, which is obviously for IoT devices. And then there's also Fedora CoreOS, which is container-centric, which I guess would be similar to SnappyCore. Probably. Now, for Fedora, it's also good to mention, started shipping on ThinkPad laptops in partnership with Lenovo in 2020. So you could buy a ThinkPad laptop with Fedora pre-installed on it. The Fedora project is supported by Red Hat Inc., mostly, almost completely, but there are some support from other companies as well, some small amount of support from other companies as well. But almost all of their support comes directly from Red Hat. Now, CentOS, you can't really talk about Red Hat and Fedora without talking about CentOS. Designed to be Red Hat compatible or as close to RHEL as possible with all the Red Hat branding removed, as that is what is required by Red Hat for you to redistribute their software. It was formed in 2004 as a build of Chaos Linux, and later it absorbed Tau Linux, which was another basically Red Hat clone. Now, CentOS had a bit of a problem in 2008 when its founder, Lance Davis, disappeared, taking the keys to the kingdom with him as he held the registration for all the CentOS domains and the PayPal account. Thankfully, the team was able to contact him in 2009 and obtain the domains. Now, the articles I read did not say specifically whether or not they provided him with the PayPal information, but it's easy enough to start up a new PayPal for that type of thing. Now, CentOS actually overtook Debian as the most popular web server distribution in 2010, with almost 30% of Linux servers using it. Then in 2014, Red Hat started sponsoring CentOS, helping to establish a platform well suited to the needs of open source developers that integrate technologies in and around the operating system. As a result, the ownership and trademarks all moved to Red Hat. And in 2020, it was decided that CentOS would be discontinued in favor of CentOS Stream, which led to the creation of several forks because a lot of the community did not like this. Some notable forks are Rocky Linux and Alma Linux, both of which are designed to be what CentOS was at the start, a binary compatible OS with Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Right. CentOS Stream is now one part of the development cycle of Red Hat, rather than being equivalent to Red Hat.
Right.
So a lot of people got upset about that. Anyhow, that
Well,
about it, Joe?
yep. Tell me about Mandrake.
Well, why don't I tell you about Mandrake? Mandrake Linux was the brainchild of Gail Duvall, who wanted to focus on ease of use for new users. The first release of Mandrake in July 1998 was based on Red Hat Linux version 5.1 and K-Desktop Environment 1. After that, it moved away from Red Hat and became a completely separate distribution. Mandrake included a number of original tools that made system configuration less difficult. Mandrake gained a reputation as one of the easiest to install and most user-friendly Linux distributions. Mandrake Linux earned praise as a Linux distribution that users could use all the time without dual booting into Windows for compatibility with websites or software unavailable under Linux. CNET called the user experience of Mandrake Linux 8.0, 2001, the most polished available at that time, and I can agree with that, having used Mandrake Linux 8. My problem was that the machine I had when they upgraded to 10 would not, I couldn't get it installed. It wouldn't run 10, but it did beautifully on 8. Anyhow, in February 2004, Mandrake Soft lost a court case against Hearst Corporation, owners of King Features Syndicate. Hearst contended that Mandrake Soft infringed upon King Features' trademarked character, Mandrake the Magician. In April 2005, Mandrake Soft announced the corporate acquisition of Conectiva, a Brazilian-based company that produced a Linux distribution for Portuguese-speaking in Brazil and Spanish-speaking Latin America. As a result of this acquisition and the legal dispute with Hearst Corporation, Mandrake Soft announced that the company was changing its name to Mandriva, and that their Linux distribution, Mandrake Linux, would henceforward be known as Mandriva Linux. Duvall was laid off from the company in 2006 along with many other employees. The last release of Mandriva Linux was in August 2011, which was actually produced by the developers of Rosa, a Russian distro based on Mandriva, who also contributed significantly to the 3 previous releases. Most developers who were laid off went to form Magia. Later on, the remaining developers teamed up with community members and formed Open Mandriva, a continuation of Mandriva. Duval is now the lead developer for /e/OS, a Google free phone operating ecosystem. So Magia was created in 2010 as a fork of Mandriva. On September 2nd, 2010, Edge IT, one of the subsidiaries of Mandriva, was placed under liquidation process by the Tribunal de Commerce in Paris. Effective September 17th, all assets were liquidated and employees were let go. The next day, September 18th, 2010, some of these former employees, who were mostly responsible for the development and maintenance of Mandriva Linux distribution, and several community members announced the creation of Magia, with the support of many members of the community of developers, users, and employees of Mandriva Linux. Magia was originally planned to be released on a 9-month release cycle, with each release to be supported for 18 months. Actual practice has been to release a new version when the Magia development community feels the new release is ready from quality and stability viewpoints. The latest stable version is Magia 8, released on 26th of February 2021. Magia has never gained much popularity, partly due to its erratic release cycle and the fact that it seems not to be tested on many brands and models of computers. On the other hand, the Open Mandriva Association was established on December 12th of 2012 under 1901 French law to represent the Open Mandriva community. It manages free software projects, including Open Mandriva LX. I have not yet gotten an answer to why LX, but all their distro is Open Mandriva LX and then the version number. Open Mandriva LX's development environment is an automated build farm, or ABF, which can manage the source code and compile it to binaries. Also, ABF creates the package repo and the ISO images. In late 2013, the first version of Open Mandriva LX was released. It was based on Mandriva Linux 2011, which itself was an amalgamation of Rosa Linux and Mandriva SA. A stable and final release of Open Mandriva LX 3.0 was released in August 2016, followed by 3.01 in December 2016 and 3.02 in June 2017. This was followed by Open Mandriva LX 3.03, which was released in November 2017. In my opinion, 3.03 was the first fully usable version, at least as good as Mandrake 8 was back in the early 2000s, and later versions have even been better. After releasing Open Mandriva LX 3.03, Open Mandriva LX developers started dropping support of i586 processor architecture. It should be stated that Open Mandriva features what is, in my opinion, the most beautiful default wallpaper in the Linux world, and they carry that vision onto the grub menu. The Open Mandriva LX 4.0 stable release arrived in June 2019, 2 years after 3.03. Among many other changes, this release is notable for switching to the DNF package manager for software management, including Magia's DNF Dragora replacing RPM Drake. Open Mandriva LX 4.3, called Dysprosium, was released in February 2022. One of the notable changes in this version is that Pipewire became Mandriva's default sound server, replacing Pulse Audio. Open Mandriva has both stable, called Rock, and continuous delivery, called Rolling, versions. So they have Rock and Rolling, haha. And they also have released an alpha featuring the LXQT desktop. Otherwise, they all are using Plasma. They do not have alternate desktops in 4.x.
Okay, the rock and rolling made me smile a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. If you do load rolling or convert to rolling from Rock, it will report that you're using version 4.5. Otherwise, you're on 4.3. Open Mandriva LX 5.0 is under development at this time. The rolling version will be named Rome, all in capital letters, and is in gold candidate status at this time. So you can go download that and try it if you like. It's really good software. It's really beautiful. The visual element of it is unlike anything else. Yeah, you can change your wallpaper in any Linux, but even so, you probably won't find anything as beautiful as what Mandrake is using.
What is gold candidate? Is that like pre-alpha or something?
Well, no, it's RC.
Okay.
They they are being themselves, and like the previous one was Silver Candidate.
Okay.
So it's a release candidate, but apparently being gold, they think it's about ready to go.
All right.
And then we get to PC Linux OS. The precursor to PC Linux OS was a set of RPM packages created to improve Mandrake Linux. These packages were created by Bill Reynolds, better known as Techstar. From 2000 to 2003, Techstar maintained his repository of RPM packages in parallel with the PC Linux Online site. In an interview, Reynolds said he started PC Linux OS, quote, to provide an outlet for his crazy desire to package source code without having to deal with ego's arrogance and politics, end quote. In other words, his ego's arrogance and politics were better than the other guys. In October 2003, Techstar created a fork of Mandrake Linux 9.2. Working closely with the Live CD project, Techstar has since developed that fork independently into a full-fledged distribution. The initial releases were successfully numbered as previews, P5, P7, P8 up to P81A, then P9, P91, P92, and P93. Although it retains a similar look and feel to Mandriva Linux, PC Linux OS has diverged significantly. The code was officially forked from Mandrake 9.2 into an independent project in 2003. After 3 years of continuous development, the developers took advantage of further development in the renamed Mandriva late in 2006 for PC Linux OS 2007. PC Linux OS used a one-time source code snapshot from Mandriva to produce a new independent code base. This implied a shift to a more modern code, which required a complete reinstallation of this version. The new version featured a new look and built-in 3D effects. A new logo was also designed for the new version and was incorporated into the boot screen. A new login screen was designed entitled Dark. Another divergence from Mandriva, a remnant of the Connectiva days before the merger, is apt-rpm, a reworking of Debian's apt package manager to install RPM packages. It's not 100%, but it's close. PC Linux OS also includes Synaptic as a further package manager. The final official PC Linux OS 2007 version was released on May 21, 2007. The 2008 version was the first to include GNOME Desktop as well as KDE. PC Linux OS 2009.2 was the last PC Linux OS live CD to ship with KDesktop Environment 3, and the last of the PC Linux OS 2007 backward compatible series. Remasters of PC Linux OS featuring the XFCE, Phoenix, LXDE, PC Linux OS LXDE, and GNOME PC Linux OS GNOME desktops were also made available. The 2010 version, released in April 19, 2010, was also the first PC Linux OS live CD to include Plasma, GNOME, XFCE, LXDE, Enlightenment, and OpenBox, and also introduced the ext4 file system support. This version required a complete reinstall of the operating system. The 2010 version is the first one to offer not only the KDE Plasma and GNOME desktops, but also XFCE, LXDE, Enlightenment, and OpenBox. Pardon the redundancy. On May 10, 2016, main developer Techstar announced the end of support for 32-bit versions, and the most recent edition was released January 8, 2022. There is also a monthly online magazine, there's a link in the show notes, for PC Linux OS, which is older than Full Circle magazine, although it did stop publication for a few months in 2009. PC Linux OS does not seem to run on all machines, but if you do get it to run, it runs quite well, although with a look and feel which is about 10 years old when you get it installed. This is my own personal experience. I've run it a number of times.
That is interesting. All right, well, that's what we have for the innards. Next time, hopefully, we'll be able to cover SLES, Slackware, Debian, SUSE, Ubuntu, including Linux Mint, and some of the independent stuff. It'll be a
Might have
whole,
to break that out a bit. But
yeah, might have to break that into further ones depending on how much information we want to pull in. Because, yeah, Debian and Ubuntu, all the little variations that you get with that, there is a lot of them. Plus, it'll probably be a lot less me and Moss droning on, and hopefully some of the other guys are available at the time.
We got to get Bill to drone some too.
Yeah, maybe get a couple other people in.
I will point out that this topic was generated from our listeners, and we thank you for that.
Yeah, and I enjoy talking about some of the history of Linux, and I know Moss enjoys it as well. We'll see what everybody else thinks
That's why I got my show,
on the next show. Yeah, yeah. Well, unless we find somebody really interesting to interview, that'll be our next topic, is more history.
Right.
But we do have some long vibrations from the ether, so let's get on to that. Okay, first up is Ken Fallon, and he did send this out to everyone, and he says, my fellow podcasters, we've started the planning for the new year, and as such, I'd appreciate it if you could include the linked promos in your upcoming shows before the new year. We're also going to request a table again at FOSDEM under the Free Culture Podcasts banner, and are looking for people willing to assist. So for the New Year's show, as we have for the last 11 years, we're hosting the 26-hour New Year show again. This is an initiative by Pokey 11 years ago to have a place where the people making and listening to Floss Tech podcasts could get together to have a two-way conversation. It's hosted by HPR. But I would like to see this become more a free culture podcast event. If any of your team, authors, readers, listeners, etc. would like to join, even for a few minutes, then all you have to do is check out either hackerpublicradio.org or freeculturepodcast.org. And there's some links to the promos, which we won't be including in this show, but should be on the next show. Now, before I read the rest of it, I do want to mention I do like to join the New Year's show, and I really enjoy it. I know Moss has joined several times on the New Year's show, and it's always a really good conversation. You can jump in for 5 minutes, you can jump in for a couple of hours, walk away, do the family stuff, come back. It's a great thing to do.
We've had kids participating. We've had people on their deathbed joining in. Yeah, you can talk to anyone about anything. It's not just about FOSS, but of course that's why we're there.
Yeah, I've had my kids on there a couple of times, just talking away, and JoJo likes it, and I know Kai was on there a couple of times, and I got a couple of good recordings of Kai talking about how short she is, and yeah. It's always a blast. And I know last year they did it on Mumble through, what was it, chatter.skyhaven.net, which is what gets used for the Linux Lugcast and the Linux Link Tech Show. So, yeah, just check out the links. It probably is the same thing again for this year, but I'll have to make sure myself as well. And now Ken also talks about FOSDEM. For those that don't know, FOSDEM, Free and Open Source Software Developers European Meeting, is a huge event with thousands of developers and anyone interested in the free and open source software movement. HBR has been covering the hallway track for years. In 2022, together with some other Creative Commons podcasts, we were accepted for a one-day stand under the umbrella of Free Culture Podcasts to promote Floss podcasts to the attendees. It was fantastic, and we handed out stickers and a leaflet that listed all the shows we could find that released under a Free Culture license. And they do have a Wikipedia link for FOSDEM. This is a call for stands open again, and I would like to apply. To do so, we would need a minimum of 2 people available at all times. From experience, more is better, and there's a link to that if you want to help out. So you can email me if you will be attending FOSDEM and be willing to help out, even for a couple hours here and there. Failing that, can you send me stickers and swag to hand out? Thanks, and a happy new year to you all. And I also, there's a couple of links to Ken Fallon's stuff there. I also want to mention that you should check out Hacker Public Radio, HPR. They have some really good individual podcasts, long-running podcasts. just go through some of their back catalog and
And if you want to do a
yeah.
podcast, you can ask you can say, I'd like to do a podcast on
Oh,
this, and they'll schedule you in.
yeah. Ken will let you do a podcast if you want to, but if you offer to do a podcast, he will chase you until you do that podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, this doesn't say anything about the location of FOSDEM.
I'm assuming that since it's a European meeting, it's going to be,
Oh,
in Europe.
well, I
But
won't be able to.
yeah, I'm not going to be able to help out with that. Sorry, guys. It's in the southeast of Brussels, in Belgium.
I'd love to go there, but
Yeah.
uh, okay. Want me to read this other?
Um. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to mention, yeah, varied topics on HPR. You can find something that you'll have an interest in, and it'll be very informative. Just to download one of them and listen to it, or make your own. Ken will love you.
Absolutely.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Shakes writes, first loved the show and have been listening to it for years. Great work, guys. I hope I have not missed it, but have you considered providing a torrent for each ear? Keep up the good work and hello from Canada. I do not encourage wget use as it uses too much bandwidth for the betterment of one person. Just greedy. Keep safe.
Now, I don't think that we do provide a torrent for each year. At least I haven't ever set one up. And
We can talk
sorry
to Bill
about
about
that. Yeah, we could definitely look into it. Now, I also know that you can do it without wget, but you still have to do it by individual episode, and that's by going to archive.org and looking up mintcast on there, and that will have every show since the beginning, and you can go down the list and click one at a time. But we will look into creating a torrent.
Yes, we will.
And that is it for our feedback. We don't have anything for check this out because it's just the two of us.
We don't check anything out.
We do. Sometimes I'll toss something in there. But this time we don't have anything. And since it was all about us, I don't think we should add any more to that. So now on to housekeeping and announcements. Let me put on my radio voice again. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something that you'd like to hear about, tell us. Send us an email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Telegram or Discord or Facebook. Or post directly at mintcast.org. Our next episode will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, October 30th, 2022. And we have links in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. You can get that converted to your time zone using the link in the show notes. Next live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, November 5th, 2022. And you can get that converted to your time zone using the link in the show notes. And for our wrap up, if you like the sound of my voice, you can catch me on a couple of my other podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is tllts.org. I'm on the Linux Lugcast, which is linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org. I do read them all, and I read all the ones that get sent to mintcast at mintcast. Or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Boss?
Well, I still am doing Full Circle Weekly News every week. We just had a new episode come out today. Distro Hoppers Digest is me. You can email me at bardmoss@pm.me, and other information is found at itsmoss.com.
And Bill, who was not able to make the show, you can send him an email, bill@mintcast.org, Bill_H on Discord, at WCHauser3 on Twitter, and WCHauser3 on Facebook. Also, you can check out his other podcast, 3ftpodcast.org. That's 3 Fat Truckers. And then Norbert, who was also not able to make the show today, you can send him an email directly, norbert@mintcast.org. Now, before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintcast possible. Norbert, Londoner, Tony, and who's our new audio editor?
Rio. Let's see. Yeah, we have a new audio editor who is
Audio
fantastic.
Audio Freak Rio. Yes, doing great work there. Really happy to have you working with us. Thank you. And then we want to thank Josh Lowe and Bill Hauser for all his work on the website. Hobstar for our logo, InitRD for the animated Discord logo, Londoner for our time syncs, Bill Hauser for hosting the Linode, which runs our website, archive.org for hosting our audio files, and the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro that we love to talk about. Thanks,
Thanks,
Clem.
Clem.
Okay, and that's a wrap. All right.
That's a short wrap.
Yeah.
127.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Well, considering that there's two of us, it'll probably break down to like an hour 15 by the time all the editing gets done. So I don't know if we should do two shows or just have it as a single one. Stop my recording.
We will give Rio the option of that. Oh, do not give me a wave. You cannot give me a wave. I want a flack.
Don't forget you need
just like
you need to
level
add
8.
You need to add the Audio Freak Rio to the template as opposed to just this show.
Yeah, I'm going to fix it. I already, right. I will get that.
398. And what's my name again? Joe.
Joe.
Okay. I forgot.
Okay, I am. Oh, let's get it in the right folder. It makes it easier to find when I have to upload it.
I don't think I had the right settings there.
Is our stream still on?
Yeah, the stream is still on. But we did not have very many people listening.
We're just not the popular ones, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, got that done. Close that. Drive.
And Leo says, hey, now, I'm a millennial and I can drive a stick. Well, Leo, you are the exception and not the rule.
And I will create 398 audio.
And now I will check my export settings. Export audio. Yeah, 8-bit. And, oh, that was it. Bit depth was at 16 instead of 24.
And got my upload started.
How's that internet working out for you? Your low-cost internet, how's that working out for you?
It's working out just fine. I'm still running, aren't I?
Yeah.
However, it says 3 minutes left on my upload. 2 minutes now. Okay.
mintCast.
Upload speeds are not ideal, but
audio.
Hey, price is right.
Yeah, you can't argue with the price. 398. I don't know why I put it in the middle.
Oh, wow. An estimated 1 billion crabs have mysteriously disappeared from Alaskan waters in 2 years. They've
weird.
had to call off the crab season.
That's weird. There's going to be a lot of people that are upset about that.
Yeah, who's got crabs?
I need a haircut.
Oh my goodness.
And a shave.
The former Former president saying things that are so far from reality again.
Still, you can't say again if he's never stopped.
Well, in this case, he's saying that that his
Hold on, before
administration
this
was
turns to politics cast, I'm going to end
yes,
the stream.
end the stream. Is it over?
And it's ended. Go for it.